Hello, folks, and welcome to today's episode of the Hospitable Hosts podcast. Today, we are speaking to David Hillar from Casa Co-host, located in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. In today's episode, we're going to hear a bit more about how David has grown his business and how he became an investor of Hospitable as well as a customer. So we're going to get digging in right now. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like and share on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks. Okay, hello, Dave. Great to have you on the podcast finally.
Hey, Miles. Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Cool. So, Dave, I obviously know you from a past life. We actually worked together previously in a previous company. You actually introduced me to Hospitable. So I guess I've got you to thank for the role for the past 2.5 years.
Yeah, I mean, and I have you to thank. You were a pleasure to work with, and I couldn't be more excited that you're at Hospitable as a product I use, and so I'm so helpful, so thankful that there's people on that side who I know personally and who I can trust as well. So.
Nice, yeah, good. And obviously, Casa Co-host, not just a customer, but also an investor in Hospitable as well, which is quite interesting. We don't have many, attendees to this podcast that are both customer and investor.
That's right. Yeah, we've been on board since you guys went live with that investment opportunity. So I was the first to put some money behind it, and then my partner agreed. And so as Casa Co-host, we've got a good little accumulation behind your business. So hopeful for the future and continued growth that maybe there's an economic benefit for us in that as well.
Sweet. Nice. Yeah, I didn't actually realize you were one of the first, or the first. Yeah, that's a fun fact I just learned. Cool. Awesome. So I'd love to kind of get into today and learn a bit more about your business. Obviously, we kind of talked about the investment piece, but obviously would love to know a bit more about Casa Co-host. Maybe you can tell us just a bit of background on yourself and how you initially got into short-term rentals.
Yeah, absolutely. So Casa Co-host is based in Toronto. I'm in Toronto, Ontario. All of our customers are in the Ontario market, as well as another province, Alberta, in Canada as well. I came into this by happenstance. So another colleague that you're aware of as well, my business partner, who also worked with us in a past life, he introduced this to me. So he was doing some lead generation marketing for someone in the short-term rental space. And he just realized that the leads were quite plentiful in this market and that they're very cost effective to acquire. And so the person he was doing the lead marketing for ended up saying, well, this is a very teachable business, something anyone can do with a bit of smarts and know-how and understanding how the sort of dynamics of the market work. And so we took an education from him initially to get into the space. And from there, we just sort of started to double down on, I think we can grow something here. We were both working in another capacity professionally at the time. Mm-hmm. So learning sort of on the sidelines. And into the last couple of years, we've taken this on as our full-time operation now. So we're committed to scaling the business now, to growing a partner base, and to evolving, what processes and procedures we have behind the business as well. So at present, we've got in and around 100 listings through Hospitable that we have on the platform. Wow. 100 different properties in Ontario and Alberta, as I mentioned, and we're hoping to grow that consistently over the next few years.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, we definitely see that quite a lot. People starting off with just one or two properties as a side hustle, and then they realize how profitable it can be and how rewarding it can be in many other ways as well. And then they grow. Maybe not all to such high level as that, but it's fantastic to hear. Over 100, cool. So I assume your kind of business processes have changed. You kind of touched on that briefly, but how does the business? How is the business run today versus how it was at the very start? I imagine there's been a lot of process change and just basically a lot more system to the whole setup, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the beginning is scramble mode. We didn't know what we didn't know. We were focused on trying to convince customers to trust us with their investment property or with their home suite. Yeah. So a lot of that was drawing upon our sort of sales and marketing backgrounds. I've quite confidently worked in marketing for 20, 25 years and in sales capacity as well. So that was sort of the easier part of the business. The harder part of the business was figuring out what we needed to do. How do we communicate with guests? How do we ensure we're offering them a good value for what they're looking for, offering them a suite that's well catered to their needs and has all the supplies and equipment that they're looking for. So the softer ends of hospitality were what we had to double down on and learn about, not having that sort of background. So in the beginning, very much scramble mode. As we evolved with some of the tool sets, so Hospitable is a great example, as we could compartmentalize things like messaging on an automated basis, as we could have cleaner reminders go out on an automated basis, we could focus more on how do we improve the experience for people physically on the property, and how do we build better marketing sales chops as well to sort of tighten up those processes. So I think figuring out some of the software in between has really enabled us to do what we do best, the sales and marketing and overseeing a business, versus spending all of our time sort of working in the nuances of guest hospitality or reminding cleaners or following up with cleaners. So that's how we've evolved. We've built in processes and tools and procedures that have let us focus more of our time on the sales and the things we do best to grow our business.
Nice. And you briefly kind of mentioned, I guess, messaging and, cleaner operations management there. Are there any other specific tools in Hospitable that kind of really do make your life easier and really kind of take a lot of things off your plate? Anything that you can dig into specifically there that you would say is like maybe your number one feature that you couldn't live without in Hospitable?
Yeah, I mean, I can't get past automation not being number one for sure. The amount of messages, you guys did a great job with the 2024 year-end wrap-up. And just to stare at that number, this massive number of automated messages that went out on our behalf was huge. So we can't get away from automation being the number one feature. But as we go down the line, there's other things that are neat that you didn't really know how much you relied upon them. So things like the integration with locks is fantastic. So we have Slag and August at all of our properties now. And the fact that codes are going out, that it's just the last 4 digits of someone's phone number in most cases, makes it easy for the guest, makes it a really trust-inducing factor with our owners as well. So when we can tell them, this guest is coming, they're only going to get a time-limited code and it's burned once they're gone and they can't have any access to your property after the fact. That's a nice feature. And the fact that we don't have to think about it once we've done a one-time integration makes that really seamless and easy for us as well. I'd say the final thing on sort of this priority list is just pricing. To have tools and software that we rely upon from an AI perspective that does some of the pricing, but when we want to go and make some tweaks because we think something is different in the market, or our owner thinks, I don't really need to rent the place this month, but I'd love to do it if it's at that level, we can just go in very quickly and do a couple of taps and the pricing's updated, versus going into Airbnb first, then going into our booking calendar, then going into Vrbo, then going into our cottages website and making all these changes. So to do that so quickly is also just a huge feature for us and something that we use every day, every week in our business as well. So that automation, the locks integration, and the calendar are really top of mind for me.
Nice, awesome. And then just, I guess, more generally about your experience with hosting. I guess you're enjoying hosting. You seem to have stuck at it. What would you say are the main pros and cons of hosting? What you're enjoying and what are the recurring challenges that keep coming up for you as a business?
Yeah, it's neat because it brings a lot of things in my my personal life together. So I've always been a home renovation kind of guy. This predates you, but Bob Vila used to have a show, This Old House, when I was growing up, and myself and my brothers watched it all the time. So it was a repair and renovation show. And so I've always had that mentality. When I bought my first house, I rewired a lot of the house myself. I've done insulation work, drywalling, all those sorts of home handyman skills. So now when I go out to see a property, my mind always goes to, let me pull out your furnace filter. Oh, this hasn't been cleaned in a long time. This furnace is really old. Is that going to be a problem for a guest who's coming here? Ooh, the water pressure in this washroom is not what I think a guest would expect. So I've got that sort of home handyman eye when I go into a property, which an owner appreciates, and which I think preps me well for what a guest is going to come to expect, right? They expect these things to work in a way and the air to be clean and things to go in a great fashion there. So that home handyman piece is coming into my life. I get to use my sales and marketing skill, as I mentioned, selling owners, getting leads, driving them to our business. And then finally, this hospitality piece. So I do enjoy that. I enjoy interacting with guests who may have a specific request. Obviously, a lot of it's automated and we have a communications team. But if there's a special request that comes up or someone lets us know there's a milestone that they're going to be achieving in our city or at a vacation property, going the extra mile to make them sort of smile and be happy with that stay. I mean, that's really pride filling as well when they call you out for that as well. So I get to use a lot of different skills and bring them to the table. So I think that space suits me well in that regard.
Nice, awesome. And I think you already kind of addressed there some of the key things that you do as a property manager, really looking after the property and making sure things are well maintained. If putting yourself in the position of a property owner that's looking for a property manager, what are the kind of things would you say they should be asking to find a property manager that is the right fit, that's going to do those things for them, to make sure that they, get a relationship that they're going to benefit from?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a really selfish answer. Obviously, from my perspective and what I've brought to our business, I think it's the things kind of I touched on a little bit, like the know-how. If you have someone coming into your property and they don't really know, how a system should work or how an HVAC system should operate or what's expected of it or lifespan, they're going to bring in professionals for all these things. So it's ancillary services consistently. Is this small mark that's on a wall, is that a water leak or is that just some moisture that's come from, like what's the main issue? So if you have someone like myself and my business partner who are concerted in thinking about those things, number one, you're probably going to save a lot of money, but you also can get in front of issues before they become an issue for your guest. And now you're compromising their stay value or your ratings. So selfishly, I'd say having someone who has a bit of know-how when it comes to a property is important. Number two, who's thinking about the system? So we've talked a little bit about process and systems and automation. But if you're investing in an individual who's going to run around and do all these things on their keyboard, or just have to consistently hire people to come out and do that, that's a problematic scenario. Versus a company like ours in Casa Co-host, we're investing in no less than 3 or 4 different tools that we bring to the table to make the day-to-day operations seamless. And we've invested in people. We have 2 operations managers. We have a communications team that's 24/7. We have territory managers. We now have 5 territory managers that go out and are responsible for, up to 15 homes in their day-to-day experience. They're going to do visits every month. And we have a roving inspector who goes and checks up on our cleaners and checks up on our territory managers, because we want to build a system of trust so we don't have to be there every day. We've got a team in place. So I would say that those are really important factors, understanding what's involved in a property and how to give a good appeal to the guests, having the systems and processes in place, and then having people. There are a lot of onesie twosies, and I'm not saying that's the fault of anyone. I think there can be a great manager who can manage maybe 5, 10 properties really well, but can they manage 40? Can they manage 50 effectively? Just relying on the tools in one body 24/7, that's a tough sell for me. So knowing that there's a lot of people behind it as well that have your back if something goes wrong and they have the right experts on it, I think is pretty important. So that's how we've scaled our business to where it is. And I think for the next level of scaling, we're going to have to invest in more people as well to ensure that the operation is seamless.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. And then conversely, I'd obviously love to know, how do you decide which property owners to work with? I assume you don't say yes to every potential client that comes along, and there has to be kind of decision criteria there to decide if you're a right fit for them. How are you deciding that?
Absolutely. And a lot of it comes down to the conversation and the reason someone is looking to this space in general. So one of my first conversation points is always, why do you want to be in short-term rentals? So we have owners in Ontario specifically that have spent a lot of time in front of the Ontario Land Tribunal, where they have long-term guests that they cannot get out of their house. They are back paying like months of rent that they owe them, year in some cases of rent, and they haven't paid. And so they're going to this tribunal to get these people kicked out, and they can't. The way the system works here, it seems like there's a lot of rights on the tenant side, right? So if the number one reason is more around flexibility, that they don't want to be in the situation where they have to evict a tenant and they're hamstrung and they can't do anything with the property, that's a good reason to be in short-term rentals, because you can make consistent income, maybe even more income, but you maintain that flexibility with that home as well. And if you have a professional manager, you're going to have responsible guests in there. Your payments every month are almost guaranteed, as long as they're doing their job. So my first question is always, why are you in this? And if their answer is money above all, I take a bit of caution there, because things can be variable, things can be inconsistent, but knowing that they're in it for the right reasons is kind of number one. Number two is, can we establish a level of trust, right? Can I convince them that I've got this? You don't need to be following up on messages. You don't need to be peering into the platform to say, why did we say this and not that? I'm okay with those questions, especially initially, but you have to trust that we've been doing this for years now, that we have a team in place that is briefed on what their responsibilities are, and that we know what we're doing. So if I can establish that level of trust with an owner as well, that's a warning sign for me going into that as well. The rest comes down to softer things. How does the property, the apartment, the house appear? Is the owner willing to invest in things that can level up the appeal? Are they willing to speak to our designer to bring things up? Or are they committed to what's there? Poorly furnished, some cheap furnishings, some things that are broken that need reparation. Those are warning signs for me as well, if someone has an appetite for making those changes. So those are some of the things I look at. There's obviously more factors, but for us, those are top of mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that second point resonates very strongly as well. The micromanagement piece. I know working with you, like, you didn't like to micromanage people. You didn't like to be micromanaged in a kind of a full-time 9-to-5 role. I don't think anyone really likes to be in that position. It makes sense that you should have some freedom. It's your expertise, so let you do your expertise, right, and let you shine. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. So I think only one more question from me, and that is, if there are listeners that are property owners and they fit that bill in terms of what you've just kind of gone through there, where can they go to find out more about your business? Maybe reach out to be a potential client of yours.
Absolutely, yeah. CasaCohost.com is our website. As I mentioned, our service territory today is Ontario in Canada and Alberta. There's no reason we can't service other areas of the country. But we like to have our approach that includes on-site visits and be able to set up visits on a regular basis. So for us, we think there's enough in this market that we can continue to scale where we are. That said, in the last week alone, I've taken calls from Ohio. I've taken a call from Texas. I've taken a call from Florida. We are talking to someone in Dubai. We've had conversations with folks in Vancouver and Quebec and New York and Michigan. So I think the sky's the limit for the business and the growth, but we're trying to choose our battles and our mechanism for growth according to what we can currently handle. And if we find great partners, we'll scale accordingly. But right now it's Ontario and Alberta, CasaCohost.com. Happy to talk to any owners, even on a consultative basis. You guys have been so great with your portal and helping hosts learn from other hosts. So anyone who wants to call us or ring me with respect to those questions, happy to help as well and share my perspectives. It does me well as an owner if I can, underpin the value of Hospitable as well and help you guys. So always happy to do that.
Awesome. I appreciate that very much. And I'm sure our listeners will too. Great. Well, thank you very much, Dave. Fantastic to finally have you on. I probably owe you a beer the next time I see you.
Let's do that soon. I'm waiting for the local Host and Toast in Toronto. So
Coming soon.
I'll be there for sure. But yeah, thanks for doing this, Miles. It's been a pleasure for me as well.
Thank you very much. Speak to you soon. Thanks again for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, share, and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform.